All right, everybody, welcome back to this live episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with Mikey Eckstein. Mikey Eckstein. Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Sorry, it's like with Embarco and Talkage, Josh Landon with Talkage and Fox too, and Chuck Bennett with Our Magazine and Talkage. Fellas, I'm really excited to talk to you because you guys just launched your new podcast, Talkish. I love anything with the word "ish" at the end of it. I think it's the great. When I saw the title, I was a little envious because I thought that's the greatest name for a podcast. I loved it. So, but I wanted to have you on the show because what I love about what you've done is you've kind of all come together, right, from your different careers. You've joined forces and done this co-host podcast. So I want to talk about kind of how you balance it. I want to talk about, that podcasting is actually easier than many people think. And so I just kind of wanted you to share your story. So I think it'll inspire a lot of other people. But let's get started on talking about how the podcast came about.
Mikey.
I think Mikey.
So a little while ago, Chuck had called me. Him and I were talking about, different stuff with him, and we were talking to, different podcast companies and, getting him back into some radio. And then a few minutes into the conversation, I was getting a call on the other line, and it was Josh Landon. And before I even clicked over, I just had a light bulb on off in my head. I'm like, hey, what about the three of us doing a podcast together? We're like, we've got three different perspectives. We have different circles, but we kind of overlap it many of times. And, we're definitely all in the entertainment and world. And Chuck was like, wow, I like it. Let's see what Josh thinks, and got him on. And, it was a concept and birth, and now here it is. And we're a few into it, and we're having a lot of fun.
I love it. And
we mix, entertainment, politics, restaurants, current events, very, hyper Detroit, but, it's definitely something that, outside of Detroit, people definitely appreciate as well.
Yeah. Well,
we try to create conversations that all people will be interested in. Even if we're talking to a politician, we want to make it fun enough. I might want to know what kind of socks you have. Josh will want to know what is his platform all about. So you'll get, Mikey's going to ask him who is his favorite entertainer, so you get a bunch of different points of views from all three of us.
Yeah. Josh, how about you?
What I like about the three of us coming together is three different pathways, but the same journey.
Yeah.
It's really infotainment, if you will, entertaining and informative all at the same time. Just bringing that different flavor, different perspectives to the table.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're getting out of it. Like, we'll have that dialogue where we're all conversing at the same time, and you'll get the three different personalities within that 1 minute of exchanging with each other.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think I have this podcast, Think Business. I have a couple sub shows, that focus on think mindset, think sales. I have a sales podcast called the 7 Minute Sales Minute, where I have I co-host it with other people. And I think people really like it because they love the banter back and forth of the co-hosts. And so let's talk about that for a minute. So because people ask me this all the time, how do you plan? And how does the flow of the conversation happen? Do you map it out? Is it organic? Right? I don't really map anything out or plan it out. It's organic only. So talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah. We have totally shot from the hip, and I think that's kind of our swag and our style. We don't really script anything. We loosely talk about some questions that we're going to ask, but we just kind of go with the flow. And I think it kind of fits our title of Talkish. We're kind of talking, Can we cuss on here?
I'm not sure, but I know what you're trying to say.
You know what I'm saying? We're having also a casual conversation,
right.
So we kind of just let it flow, right, guys?
Yeah,
absolutely, Mikey. Okay, so we had Sheriff Benny Napoleon on our show for the last episode, and it was a conversation of Chuck asked a good question about like, hey, Sheriff, so tell me what's the difference between the police chief and the sheriff for people who may not know.
Yeah.
A question I had for the sheriff was, talk about being black and being blue. It's having that fun conversation, but then also talking about what the heck is going on in the real world.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of both.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the real world, because there seems to be so much divide in the real world. There seems to be, it's amazing. You can turn on two different news stations and as if you're living on two different planets. And so when the three of you are coming from entertainment backgrounds, Fox 2, Our Detroit, and then plus you have just the people who you are that you're bringing to the table. And so how are you kind of sharing thoughts, sharing opinions, while still kind of, allowing a platform for, just people to kind of, get educated and also kind of, get some direction from your perspective?
The thing is that this whole pandemic thing has just like changed our lives. Like all of us, it is like taking all of us, throwing us upside down, and we're not quite sure where we're going to land. In my case, for instance, I write the society column for the Detroit News. So that job involves going to parties and writing about them. But so that screws my career up because there are no more parties right now, and really, almost if you go to everybody's lives has changed. What you do, somehow it has been affected, and you can't do that like that anymore. So we have to all sort of redefine ourselves, reinvent ourselves. We can take what we do and come up with a new idea and a new way to do it. But normal life is not normal as to what we have known it to be for all of these years. Now there's a brand new life. You got to figure out what yours is going to. What's your part? Yeah,
I think that's really well said. We all got to figure out our part because we can't sit back and just be complacent. We got to figure out what our part is, what our voice is, and everything that we do. That's one of the things I love about what you guys are talking about. You're putting however much of your voice in something to get people to think differently, to get people to move differently, and to just wake people up a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is a big time of awakening. Josh, how about you?
Definitely an awakening because if we don't, with the civil unrest, if we don't take a step back and see how we got to this point, we may not get another chance, in my opinion, to really come together and learn more about each other. Like this time, it does feel different. And I'm only 36 years old, and I've spoken with people who are older than me. And I've gotten mixed reaction about, okay, it feels a little bit of the same every 10 years we go through a period of this. But then there are many others who say this is different. And we really need to have those uncomfortable conversations, that dialogue.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a fun way or a serious way. But having those conversations is very important right now. Open conversations.
Yeah, I agree. Mikey, how about you?
Excuse me.
Mikey's life hasn't changed much. I'm gonna just like butt in right here. Mikey is still continuing to do what Mikey does, and he does it very well. And he has fun while he's doing it, and I'm proud of him.
Well, he's the mastermind behind this whole thing. Talkage starting with Mikey.
Yeah.
Well,
But you know what? I will comment on that. I think even for the Mikeys of the world, or for anybody who maybe hasn't been as affected, you still need to reinvent yourself, and you still need to, you still need to look kind of 10 years out. I mean, studies show that by the year 2030, 85% of the jobs that exist do not exist today, which means over the next decade, and those were pre-COVID numbers, that's how much the world was going to change. And then you look at other studies, like by 2025, 75% of the global workforce will be millennials, and that doesn't even include Gen Zs. And so you have this decade pre-COVID stats that now have been accelerated, and so you have no choice but to reinvent yourself, because you'll become archaic overnight.
Yeah, well, there's two parts to that for me. One, going back to, it's definitely changed my business outlook, and like 75-80% of what I had did prior to COVID was live entertainment and stuff like that, doing concerts and tours and sports players appearances and etc. And however, I mean, we were the first ones to go and the last ones to come back. And at first I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? But then, it's like, almost when you get fired from a job or something that you've always wanted to leave, but you couldn't close the door, and it finally closes. For the first week or so, you're like, oh man. And then it's like, wow, that was the best thing that could have happened. I don't know if it's the best thing that could have happened right now, but I've learned to be able to do a lot of stuff that I've always wanted to do, and focus time and effort and the appropriate amount of time and stuff that things would do that would require to do the stuff that I wanted to do, such as like a lot of film work, a lot of other stuff that doesn't require live entertainment and appearances at the time. So with that being said, I've been able to adjust in that light. So and yeah, I was like, I got up early this morning, and I was on 696 at 7 a.m. and then on 94 at 8:30 a.m. and there's no traffic, and I'm thinking like, wow, there are a lot of people still working, but so many people are adjusting to working from home. And it's going to be a really interesting scenario to see how like all these office buildings play out, and all these office rentals and leases and stuff, because if it's working and people, companies are saving a lot of money on, heating, cooling, office space, office supplies, and they're making money, I know Quicken Loans isn't hurting right now. They're going to have an astronomical year, and people are doing it from home. So, I did think about that this morning when there was not a ton of traffic, and, it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, especially as we're kind of we haven't even really hit the second wave of a lot of the stuff we're going to see when it comes to closures. I have a question for you guys, and Mikey, probably not so much necessarily for you, but for Josh and for Chuck. Having a podcast, you have less filter than you do when you're working, and you're on the news, or you're writing for the Free Press, or you're writing for Detroit News, or you're writing for Our Detroit. So what's it like to have that, that freedom to just go off script and not have to, have any time constraints too? It's not like, you have a minute and a half to tell a story that you can tell in 15 minutes. And now you can really kind of just expand on that. I would think it's got to be a lot of fun.
Because you get to let the conversation breathe.
Yeah, well said.
At the same time, I think it's fair to be consistent with what I do on Fox 2 and with what I do on the podcast, but just go more in depth.
Yeah.
This definitely brings out the three different personalities and characters of us with that question, right, Chuck?
Yeah, it certainly does. I guess because of because I've been doing this a long time. I've been given sort of license to do what I do. Either you like me or you don't like me. I'm not so worried about, oh, they don't like me because somebody painted the wrong picture of me. This is me. This is me, and you love me or you don't love me. And even at Our Detroit and the Detroit News, where I cannot be as totally free as I am with the podcast. I was doing a radio show, basically, and I have that same freedom. I mean, as I do with the podcast. So I'm sort of uncensored, and I love that. I absolutely love it, and I love that the Detroit News and our magazine embrace it. So I might watch my language a little bit when I'm writing in the news, but I'm still me all the way around.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not worried. Oh, please don't say that, or I can't say that, because somebody might think I'm a bad person. This is me. Love me or leave me.
Yeah.
With the three of us, it's kind of perfect. Like, I'm in the middle. I'm kind of like, a little uncensored, but I'm also, pretty professional. Chuck doesn't have the filter so well, and Josh is our, good Samaritan, very clean news anchor partner. So it blends well.
Yeah, I love it.
I think for the listeners, what Mikey just described and what Chuck just described, it gives the listeners a little bit of everything. You get your wild card, you get your status quo, if you will, and you get kind of your middleman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think right.
And Chuck's experience in this city and with everybody he knows, and Josh's day to day, and my background and current entertainment side. It's definitely looking at situations in several different perspectives.
Yeah.
Here's something else that's very important between the three of us that we haven't mentioned. We're all Detroit.
Yeah.
In our own way. We're all Detroit, and that's what I think people are catching on to very quickly.
Yeah. Let's talk about the energy of Detroit. I'm in Huntington Woods. I'm a Detroiter, and so what part of Talkage? How much Detroit is going to be in Talkage? Is it? Yeah. So let's kind of talk about that for a minute.
I mean, hey, we're just getting started, guys. I mean, we kick off the first episode, we had Trick.
Yeah.
Mandatory. 3 years to Detroit. We had Grace, the owner of American Coney Island, downtown.
That's been there for 103 years.
Yes, a staple in the community.
And we had actually an amazing guy that owns a restaurant that was recently exonerated from a murder by Kim Worthy. And Kim Worthy, who just got reelected that week, had put him in prison 9 years ago for that murder. And he's also born and raised in Beirut.
She needed to be reelected, and now she lets him out of jail, right? That's kind of crazy. 9 years ago, she prosecuted him. But the same evidence was there 9 years ago. Now all of a sudden it's recognized, and it's like, oh, this guy couldn't have done this murder. It's like, we've been trying to tell you that for 9 years.
Right.
So but to get to your question, though, the three of us are huge Detroit cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
And our show promotes Detroit and Detroiters, but the stories are of interest to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you might not have to live here, but the subject matter is going to be it'll be entertaining and informative.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, the format of the podcast, right? So there's the three of you, you have guests, what's the future of Talkage? It's relatively new. You've got a bunch of episodes that are live. what can people expect from your podcast moving forward?
Well, one is expect the unexpected. the other is, we're trying to stay consistent with very Detroit and very diverse cast of guests. But we're having somebody that has a restaurant or a venue pretty much on every show. We're showcasing a Detroit artist every show. And it doesn't matter what genre it is. And we tend to have somebody that's in the, political law enforcement side to shine that kind of light on every episode. So we're going to have several sports players and stuff. So it's really kind of blending in 3-4 different walks of life. And again, the word I'm using is their perspectives of the city. And I just want to kind of touch base back on something that I worked on a show called Detroit 187 that was on ABC several years ago. And I was hired by ABC to do consulting on the show and also to handle all the main cast relocation. And when there were 7 main cast members, 2 of them had been to Detroit before and to the suburbs. And they were totally excited about coming back to Detroit. Now, the other 4 or 5 cast members that had not been to Detroit, and again, this was 2010, 2011, so it's not quite where it is right now. However, those 4 or 5 were like terrified. Like, oh my God, I'm moving to Detroit. Like, oh my, where am I going to stay? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to need security? Like, I don't know. All I heard was this, this negative side of Detroit. So when they got here and they saw Detroit proper and they saw the suburbs, they were like, this is the best place ever. This is amazing, And, the thing about that, Detroit, people who haven't been here, or, the bar is set so low. And it's not a bad place. It's a great place. So the expectation level is so much easier to love it when you set it that low.
Yeah.
And I think, myself personally basing off how I saw that go down is kind of how I want to use, my platform to talk about and to enlighten our city to others.
Yeah.
I want to follow up on what Mikey just touched on. One, I guess you can say enjoyment I do get is bringing the perspective that I do on Fox 2, bringing the perspective I do now with Talkage, because I grew up on the east side of Detroit, deep east, Denby High School, a part of town where you need to have thick skin, if you follow me.
Yeah.
And so when I tell people where I grew up, it kind of throws them off guard a little bit. It gets rid of that stigma a little bit. Yeah. It's like, oh, if you come to Detroit, if you talk to people from the neighborhood, oh, you're going to get robbed, you're going to get shot. And not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
It gets rid of that stereotype a little bit.
Yeah. I love that. You guys are talking a lot about awareness, perspective, and I think podcasts are so great for that. And everybody doing their part. For everybody who's listening right now, who's saying, everybody who's listening right now is saying, hey, I have an opinion, I have a thought, I want to share it, but there's a million podcasts out there, right? Encourage them, give them some inspiration on why they should start a podcast. They should use their voice for good, right? For good. They should use their voice, and why the medium of having a podcast can be so positive.
Podcasts are part of the future, for one.
Yeah.
And the more perspectives you have, the better. That's just what it really comes down to. I mean, with this civil unrest, part of the problem is we haven't shared enough perspectives.
Yeah.
We kept it bottled in to where now it's just exploding. But if we can get more people sharing their candid thoughts, it'll help us learn more about each other.
Yeah, well said.
Another thing is people just need to do it. Like if people will beat themselves up if they ask 25 people what their thought is. you're going to get 25 different answers.
Yeah.
If it's something, just like any career, especially like artists and stuff, just do it.
Yeah.
Get a little constructive criticism, get a little feedback, but don't worry about what everybody else is thinking. Nobody discouraged us like, oh my God, you guys shouldn't do that. However, I've got a lot of people like, I didn't know what to think. Like, I thought you guys were like kind of just throwing this together and but like, this is actually really good. I'm really impressed. I'm getting a lot of that. I'm like, thinking, well, thanks for thinking negative. They weren't thinking negative about us, but they were just like, okay, that'll be cute, the three of them. But, they're seeing that we're taking it serious and the caliber of guests that we're getting and the, free format that we have, and it's working.
Yeah, so, right. And it goes back to something Chuck said earlier, Chuck, when you talked, if you're doing it right, you're hold on, Chuck's coming. Chuck's frozen.
All right.
There's two of you, Chuck. There we go. Like Chuck said earlier, right? You attract and repel people. And if you're doing it right, you're attracting the right people and repelling the people that don't want you. And that I think is that's great feedback. I did a news segment once, and they sent me the thing, and on YouTube, I didn't realize I clicked on it, and there was a comment that said like, "What a dumbass." So I was like, "Oh, I wonder." I'm like, I thought I was on the wrong click. I was like, "Oh, what? I wonder what they're talking about." And then I looked, and they were talking about me, but it was hilarious. I told my wife and my kids, I showed them just because I thought it was so funny. That, to your point, you just got to take the good with the bad and make it constructive and evolve from there. So, guys, in closing, I appreciate you guys being on the show. I want you to share just kind of one thing that this podcast has taught you about yourself, because I think it's such a great platform, and there's so many great things that it does. And I want you to inspire as many people right now listening to either be a guest on a podcast that they've been asked to but have been hesitant, start their own. Like, what's one piece of advice you would give them to do their part, right? To do their part in the world, whether it's a podcast or whatever it is, to kind of dig deep and share their voice and perspective. Chuck, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the biggest thing, John, is that we get a chance to learn things about a lot of people in Detroit, people in all positions, politicians, restaurateurs, entertainers. And, like everybody says right now, we're all in this together. So it's really very interesting to hear everybody's stories and to hear them share with us the things that they have been doing lately, what they're doing in the future, and how the pandemic has affected their lives and what they have to say. What are their suggestions? I always have to hear what's new. So how did it work out for you? And how are you getting through all of this?
Yeah, well said. Josh, how about you?
I would say this podcast has taught me early on, or has shown me even more early on, that we have a lot more people than I realized that are hungry for real dialogue.
Yeah.
They're craving it. And I think this format that we put together is giving them another option for their dialogue. And as far as people looking to do their part, it may sound like a cliche, but it truly is following your heart.
Yeah.
If it says it in your heart and in your core, you need to do it.
Yeah.
It's telling you that for a reason.
Well said. Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, I encourage people to do their own, or to listen and just continue to learn. You're always learning from others, learning about others. You can never, you can never stop learning and never stop getting knowledge. And I think this is a fun way for us, for sure. I know it is, and it will be for others if they want to do their own show, be guests on others. You're always learning, and I think that's one thing that I really truly enjoy.
Yeah, great. Guys, tell everybody where they can find Talkage.
Mikey?
Ish on Instagram. Go ahead, Mikey.
And then you can find us on the iHeart app. It's Talkish, one word. Search it, will pop right up. And we will be on several other platforms, Spotify's, Amazon's, iTunes, all that very shortly. But right now, at the iHeart app, we're on Facebook and Talkish. And tune in. It's fun.
Okay. Guys, I appreciate it. You got a great podcast. You got all great personalities, great co-hosts, great synergy. I love that you're doing it. I hope more people do. I wish you all the best, and I'm glad that you came on this podcast to talk about your podcast. So keep on doing great things and raising the awareness of the world and doing good stuff. So I appreciate you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John.
All right. Thanks, guys.